The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily represent those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting group. Access Fort Wayne is a department of the Allen County Public Library. If you or anyone you know might be interested in making a television show, please call 260-421-1250.
Hi, Dr. Rudy Cashman here. Thanks for turning on the show here. This is going to be a very interesting subject today, which frankly applies to almost any family because it's about breast cancer. And it's extremely common. And the message today is, and it's a wonderful message, that it can be prevented a good 50 to 80% of the time by proper lifestyle. So breast cancer prevention is the cure. I even wrote a book about it. In case you want more information here, I hold it up for you. And you can read about more detail there. There, have a look at it. It's on Amazon. Or you can get it at the library where I'm at right now. So, frankly, it's almost an untold secret. Hardly any women know that. You could prevent it a good 70-80% of the time. I saw some wonderful ladies putting up the pink ribbons for the Vera Bradley thing the other day, and I walked up to them and asked them how many knew that breast cancer was preventable. A good 50 to 80% of the time, not one of them knew that. So the information is not out there, and that's the reason I'm doing this show, and I'll make a podcast out of it and a YouTube so you can look at the information, okay? So it's an untold secret. Nutrition can prevent 50 to 80% of breast cancer. Mm-hmm. Yes, and I would tell you all about it. So diet is the main driver. Dr. Glaspy, Glaspy, John at UCLA Comprehensive Breast Cancer says so too. Breast cancer, the incidence about by age 80 or 90, 1/8 of the American, mainly women, but men can get it too, have had breast cancer, okay? And among the Asian people, it's only 1 in 40. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the reason is probably eating different foods, different environmental exposures, stresses, for example. So we could reduce the risk of a person getting breast cancer 70-80%. Wouldn't you want to do that? So the way we are treating it today, we are diagnosing it. We are screening tests, mammograms, and ultrasounds, and physical examination, all of which I agree should be done, but we are diagnosing it when we already have it. What I'm speaking about is preventing it, because once you have it, a lot of things are coming your way, and they could be avoided 78% of the time, okay? Are drugs as powerful as food? No. That's been well studied. Cambridge University in England also said diet could prevent 80% of it by Dr. Cummings, the biggest obesity doctor in the world. I listened to his talk on YouTube. There are drugs, tamoxifen is an example, that can reduce the rate significantly, 40-50%, depending whether a person has a lot of estrogen in their body. Okay, it prevents the activation of estrogen, the manufacture of it in the body, or even the action of it. So that's important too. But diet is even more important, okay? And the National Cancer Institute in 1998 mentioned that estrogen produces a great deal of breast cancer, but not all of it. We'll discuss that in more detail, okay? The rate of breast cancer seems to increase about 1% per year. Understandable, because cancer is a sugar feeder. Cancer is a sugar feeder. It takes 13 molecules of sugar to make one ATP, versus for a normal person, one molecule makes one ATP. So it's fermentation. That's what cancer does. Type 2 diabetes rate, which puts a lot of sugar in the cells, is increasing at an alarming rate, and the breast cancer rate follows that. So it increases every year. There are about 200,000 cases in the United States per year. 40,000 of these people die. Mm-hmm. And of the other 200,000, you can realize some may not have died, but can be disabled. They've had a radiation, they've had surgery, some of the breasts have been removed. The radiation X-rays may cause another cancer, because radiation is cancerogenic. Okay, it may cure one thing, but results in another cancer. So food is kinder to your body than drugs. Okay, so cancer is a sugar feeder. So people who, just like the virus that's going on right now, feeds on sugar. So to get less cancer or less virus, to find out if you have diabetes or not, or on the road to diabetes, is very important. And the best way to do it is, fasting blood sugar is good, glucose tolerance test is good, but what is better is a serum insulin test. That catches diabetes 10, 15 years before your time. It's well described in books. So to catch it early, get a serum insulin screening test, and learn about proper eating, can prevent breast cancer. Yes. So breast cancer can be prevented, stopped, and even controlled and reversed in part. You don't necessarily have to die from it. So proper nutrition and get necessary drugs, radiation if you need it, if you already have it, certainly. But what I'm talking about, and Einstein even said, intelligentsia may solve the problem, okay? But it's genius to prevent the problem. And you're the genius, not me. You are the genius once I give you the information. So a diet, of course, that should be recommended that reduces the estrogen level. After menopause, you know, the estrogen level drops, but women seem to gain weight after menopause. So the amount of fat in the body increases, and fat has in it estrogen. So breast cancer rates actually go up. 80% of breast cancer occurs after age 50. Mm-hmm. So you try to keep a normal weight even before, but especially at that time, you may have a hormonal weight gain, and especially around the belly, and the breast cancer rates will go up. So pay attention to what you're eating, and I'll tell you what that involves. So if there is breast cancer running in the family, if it's genetic, only about 5% of breast cancer is genetic. Only 5%. They take all the money they collect from Fort Wayne to send it for genetic research. What do you think? Doesn't make me happy, at least, that some should be kept here to teach the people what I'm teaching today, maybe through handouts or maybe podcasts of my show. If it occurs in every generation, it's genetic, but it doesn't have to express itself. So if we teach the daughters and the kids at a young age, diabetes, which puts sugar in the cells, starts rising in children. The highest rate of obesity is now in age 2 to 6. Mm-hmm. So to teach the kids to prevent diabetes because of the sugar thing, but it helps prevent breast cancer. So we have to get the children involved. So what makes breast cancer grow? Many factors have been added, taken together to develop and grow breast cancer. Number one is what initiates it, okay? It is a hormonally driven tumor at times, other times it isn't, and it's estrogen, okay? But estrogen does a lot of other things in the body. It gives you the sexual characteristics. It grows the breast. It thickens the vaginal lining, protects the heart. Makes the blood vessels pliable, decreases bone loss, maintains the membranes of the urethra, urination, increases brain cell connections. So estrogen does a lot of other things. So you need some in your body. And there are many different estrogens. That's not just one. Estradiol is a strongest estrogen. Soybeans have weak estrogen in it. So, but in there, how does a hormone express itself? Our cells have on them receptors, okay? And estrogen, that's how the estrogen gets into the cell to express itself. In the breast, for example, the ducts that drain the breast glands, the mammary, which we have millions, okay, the ducts drain them, but there are receptors in these ducts that lead to the nipple, but there are also insulin receptors, okay? There are estrogen receptors and insulin receptors. And the insulin receptors, remember the sugar? Insulin pushes sugar into the cell, okay? There are more insulin receptors than estrogen receptors. So what is the origin of some of these, a lot of these breast cancers? It's being a diabetic and having sugar in your cell. Just like the virus loves to gobble up the sugar, so does cancer. Remember, cancer uses fermentation. It once, Otto Warburg, a doctor in Germany, discovered that in the 1930s. Yes, he died in the 1950s. And then his research was kind of put aside because they thought when Watson and Crick came to develop the helix, and they thought, well, it's our genes that regulate and produce most cancers. It's not true. And now it's changing again to a Warburg theory of fermentation, and that sugar is the main cause of cancer. Sugar causes not just breast cancer, but many other cancers and keeps them alive, makes them grow, provides the energy. So estrogen receptors in the brain, on the bone, but there's many, many more in the ducts inside the breast. So the initiating thing that starts the cancer may actually be the insulin, producing the genetic change in the DNA to make the cells start growing. Interesting. And the anatomy of the breast, we spoke about it a little bit. So the breast has tiny sacs, millions of them, which are then drained by the milk ducts to the nipple. But it has epithelium in an epithelium, has to reproduce, and mistakes are made, and if they have insulin receptors and estrogen receptors, what I think is happening, the insulin receptors causes the change in the cells, and it changes their DNA, and they start growing, and then the estrogen comes along and makes them grow. That's the reason you want low estrogen, okay? So estrogen increases the epithelial growth, and incidentally, by the time if they check you on an X-ray scan and they discover that you have breast cancer, they're ready to make them discoverable on any test. They already have 1 billion cells. Yeah. So you see my point, why prevention is important. Treatment's important too, but prevention is a lot easier, costs a lot less, it deforms you a lot less, more likely to cure, and you're cured, okay? And after menopause, the estrogen level can go up because we're not eating properly, we're gaining weight, we're becoming overweight. Remember, fat carries with it estrogen, and tumors start growing more frequently. Now, there is remember I said if every generation in your family's got it, okay, then it's probably hereditary, although that is a very low amount, less than 2%, 1.5% if every generation, but they have found that those people have higher estrogen levels on average. If you had a total hysterectomy done before age 40, breast cancer rate goes down 75%. Mm-hmm. And that involves the amount of estrogen in your body. So we have strong and weak estrogens, and remember we spoke about drugs, tamoxifen, and raloxifene is another one. They are used and should be used. But the best answer is proper eating, exercise, for example. The length of time you're exposed to a lot of estrogen. For example, some children start menstruating at a very young age and stop menstruating at a very old age. So the length of time they're exposed to estrogen, the breast cancer rates go up. A lot of kids start menstruating earlier because they are eating the wrong food. They are overweight. Remember, the fat has estrogen in it, and they start menstruating a lot earlier. Breast cancer rates go up. Isn't that very interesting? In Europe, you'll find this fascinating. Over 300 years ago, they studied a group of nuns 300 years ago and found they had a higher rate of breast cancer. And the reason being is they never became pregnant. And therefore the estrogen levels were elevated longer. They never stopped because they had no children. And their breast cancer rates were elevated. So that again is proof. So what initiates the cancer? What pulls the trigger? What pulls the trigger? Oxidative load, free radicals, which are produced by eating bad foods. Too much sugar, insulin level goes up. That causes oxidative stress. That causes insulin growth factors, which makes the cells grow. Remember, insulin doesn't just push sugar into the cells. It also makes cells grow. It makes cancer grow. So you want the insulin level to be low. By eating properly, by eating more good fats versus sugary foods, for example, there'll be less insulin in your body and tumors will grow a lot less. So because the oxidative stress and the free radicals that are caused by this damage the DNA and increase cancer rates. So we can, chemotherapy can help by destroying abnormal DNA, for example. Radiation helps, but remember, radiation has side effects too. It changes the DNA of the cells, and other type of tumors like lymphomas, myelomas, Hodgkin's disease can show up in a patient who's been radiated in their breast. Breast cancer could take 33 years to develop, many years to develop. Matter of fact, they did autopsies on people who had died, who never had no evidence of breast cancer, and they found in 39% of the people there were some breast cancer cells present. 39% of people, women autopsied, have breast cancer that's been undiagnosed, was not affecting them. So the changes can occur very slowly, and by the time they discover breast cancer, remember I said, usually like in a mammogram, there's a small little thing you think is breast cancer. It has billions of breast cancer cells in it. Isn't that interesting? So prevention is the genius, okay? And I want the genius to be you, okay? So chemo affects the life cycle of the cancer cell, okay? And it disrupts the hormonal pathways that cause cancer, repairs the genetic material, the DNA. The cancer cells have abnormal DNA, inactivates the harmful chemicals go with it, inactivates enzymes that drive the flow of it, for example, estrogen. It scavenges abnormal cells, some of the chemo drugs, lowers the oxidation level with antioxidants, so inhibits cells growth. That's the idea of chemotherapy, so it definitely has value. But eating the right food, exercise, stress reduction will prevent a lot more, cure a lot more than just chemo. See, so that's important. So what the nutrients in food, the nutrients in them, the carotenoids and the vitamins and the minerals, they slow down estrogen production to about 20%. And if you eat a low sugar diet, say a keto diet, science has shown now, and it's what I teach. I don't have time to go into tremendous detail at the moment. If you eat, say, good fats 50% of the time, maybe 20% protein, and the rest some fruit, for example, some berries. That's you're leaning towards keto. Another easy way is to do what I call 16-8. You don't eat for 16 hours. Eat for 8 hours. We all can do that. That's simple. You're in keto. You're metabolizing fats. Cancer does not eat good fats. There are bad fats. There are good fats. So if you're in keto metabolism, and you suppose you already have cancer, I would definitely learn about keto metabolism. There are many books about it. Then you're not feeding sugar to your cancer cells. Remember, 13 molecules of sugar it takes to keep a cancer cell alive through fermentation out of Warburg's work. So if you already have cancer, go keto, man. Learn about it. Read my books, watch my DVDs. And so insulin, if you eat a sugar diet, has insulin growth factors, makes tumor cells grow. Alcohol also feeds breast cancer because it's a form of a sugar, okay? So people who drink a lot of alcohol are more likely to get breast cancer. People who smoke more likely to get breast cancer. Aromatase inhibitors, which are the drugs I mentioned, seem to help. So if you can shorten the time of exposure to estrogen by removing organs or by eating the right food, for example, you can avoid and get over this problem. So the idea is to block the estrogen receptor, okay? Weak estrogen receptors, you can do that by eating some soy and some flax. it helps protect the breast. Another thing they found, people have less breast cancer. I don't recommend this one, but it does happen. A full-term pregnancy early in life seems to reduce the breast cancer rate down the line, again, because the estrogen goes down, and so we're blocking the trigger. We're blocking the trigger. So what about the nutrition? Eat a combination of foods that decrease oxidation load with a large amount of antioxidants. So what are we talking about? Fruits and vegetables are helpful, but good fats are the main thing. Remember the pyramid I talk about? 50, 70% good fats, very healthy. Read Sue and Ryan's book, Simply Keto. That'd be an excellent book to read. Pictures of the foods you eat, 30 pages of explanation what keto is all about. And you can block the estrogen receptor through the drugs that we mentioned. I think to have a smoothie in the morning, which I have every day, and I recommend that with good fats in them, some nuts in them. And Dr. Furman would say, if you have a mushroom and half an onion and you eat it every day, that is a big cancer preventer, because you are presenting the phytochemicals, nutrients that help prevent cancer. But of the science of this, I think good fats are even more important than the nutrient foods I mentioned. They're very important, but you only need a certain amount. Good fats are the biggest preventer. Cancer is not a fat. It's not a fat eater. It's a sugar eater, and there's some sugar even in fruit and berries. There's some sugar in there. Okay, so flax also blocks estrogen because it's full of omega-3 fats. You know, we have good fats, the omega-3, and bad fats, the omega-6, and they are essential. So you have to eat them. The body doesn't provide them for you. Dr. Furman says only one vegetable interferes with estrogen pathway, cruciferous vegetables. And I'll read some to you examples, broccoli and cauliflower and cabbage, and I'll read you some more of those. So indoles, for example, and cruciferous vegetables are very good for you. And I'll read some to you here. Cruciferous vegetables, that means they have a cross. When they're flowers, they look like a cross, which are cress, bok choy, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower. I think cauliflower is a good substitute for rice. Rice is a sugar. And rice is a sugar. Look at the glycemic index. White rice, close to 90. Dark rice, 78 or so. So what are you eating when you're eating a lot of rice? You're eating sugar. So some ethnic groups seem to get away with it a little bit, but the rest of the food habits are excellent. Rutabagas, turnips, watercress, kale, collards, mustards, radishes, they're all healthy cruciferous vegetables, good to eat and preventative for breast cancer. They are the superstars. The superstars. They lower the insulin. So lower the insulin. So and as I already mentioned, your insulin level goes up when the sugar goes up. When you're eating mainly good fats, sugar goes down, insulin goes down, your fat cells open up, let fat out, goes to the liver, turns to ketones, and now your energy source is ketones. That's the state you want to get into. It even makes your brain work better. The brain can work on ketones. Not till about 1950 did they know that. They always thought only sugar runs the brain. No, ketones, good fats can run the brain and run it better than insulin. A lot of dementia, Alzheimer's disease, is associated to being diabetic. Yeah, the insulin affects the brain. Yeah. So cancer cells have insulin receptors in them, and in them themselves. Remember I said the epithelium in the breast has insulin receptors, but the cancer cells themselves have on them insulin receptors, so that when sugar is present, it can quickly get into the cell, because cancer cells need 13 molecules of sugar for energy. Okay, so they live on fermentation, 13 to 1. Remember we said that. And so blood tests are critical. Yeah, I don't care if 20 to 30% of thin people are diabetic. They just don't know it. They never had a serum insulin done. They had a blood sugar. Oh, I don't have diabetes. I'm of low weight. What counts is the amount of fat in your liver, the amount of fat in your muscles, and then how much fat in your pancreas, yes, or in your omentum. The good news is that diabetics who take a lot of insulin think they can't ever get off of that. Well, they're wrong. If they lose the weight by eating a proper ketogenic type diet, the fat will leave the liver, the fat will leave the pancreas wakes up. It's in the literature. I read it again the other day. That's wonderful news. If you've been on insulin 30 years, if you start eating the right diet, the fat will leave the pancreas will wake up and produce insulin again. I read it again the other day. Yes. Very scientific, huge study with 300,000 people. Isn't that wonderful news? That's great news. That's wonderful news. So we need to look at the glucose content of individual foods. Use the glycemic index. You can look it up. The bad ones are, we said, rice, potatoes, white flour. That's all sugar. They maybe have a little fiber in them, but that's sugar. So avoid foods with a high GI index, okay? Keto, good fats is what you want. What are high GI foods? Let me give you an example. Ice cream, I think you know that one. Hamburgers, potatoes, raisins, rice flour, bread, pineapple. Boy, sure tastes good, but if you don't eat a lot of it, what difference does it make? And croissants, fast food, processed foods, high sugary foods. They took off the covering, the germ and the brand, and you're eating sugar is what you're eating. Most fast food restaurants are serving you high sugary foods. They don't sell you foods with good fats because sugary foods are addictive, become addictive to the food. Can't stop eating, okay? And it's like if I would not allow it in the house, but I can think in the past where there were 6 donuts. I lay in there, I come home after a stressful day of neurosurgery. You think I'm just going to eat 1 donut? You got to be kidding. So we have 50 hormones on us, and they affect our brain. So this is not judgment on anyone who has problems with this. We all do. Nature designed it to seek some sugar to stay alive. But we used to eat 5-7 pounds of sugar. Now we're eating 200 pounds a year. Mars bars, English muffins, baked potatoes, especially when you put all this stuff on them. I could go on and on. Those are high GI foods. You want to eat them. To give you a quick example of the Alzheimer's disease, and I wonder, I don't say I have the final answer, but I have a picture at home actually of Nancy Reagan when President Reagan got shot. She's getting in the car to go to the hospital. I noticed she has a big container there full of jelly beans. Yeah, I know of a teenager in town here actually who visited the president because they had that political connection, and the jar of jelly beans was on there. I mean, it makes you wonder. Remember what I said about sugar and insulin, and that's what he had. I wonder, I didn't say the final answer, but yeah, I have that picture. It's a beautiful picture of Nancy and her guard I have at home. I really wonder. Jelly beans, are 80% on the glycemic index. And and you can read other books, about breast cancer. The Mayo Clinic book is a good book to read. So remember I said fruits and vegetables are protective, but good fats you need too. Carotenoids are very protective against breast cancer. Matter of fact, one of the books, Dr. Arnott's book, he recommends 9 portions a day, okay? And remember we spoke about oxidative stress and free radicals, and you can give people called ORAC scores, ORAC scores, to see how much free radicals they got. And the higher, the better. Garlic is like 20, kale 17, spinach 12, broccoli 8.9, beets 8.4, strawberries 15.3. So these reduce oxidative stress and free radical damage. So to know what the ORAC scores are is interesting. And when you're eating, step 8, avoid chemical estrogens, pesticides. For example, if you're eating an animal, what did the animal eat, for example? So avoid chemical estrogens. Plant-based diet is what is recommended. Lean meats, lean dairy, low-risk seafood. And if you reduce the body fat, your estrogen level will go down, and so will your cancer rates. So it is most dangerous when to lose weight. When it is it most important? Of course, you want to catch it in the children if you can, and you as you're going along, because if you're overweight, you probably get diabetes. 90% chance you get diabetes too. You're going to get all those diseases, and I don't have time to go through all those right now, but heart attacks and strokes and dementia and breast cancer. Most cancer is a sugar feeder, okay? It is most dangerous to gain weight at menopause. The estrogen level will go up quickly, okay? And the alcohol has acetaldehyde in it, acetaldehyde, and that causes breast cancer. It's very powerful. So alcohol is a big, if you're overweight, you drink a lot of alcohol. Remember, alcohol is a type of sugar. Odds of breast cancer go way up. You're drinking a lot of alcohol, you're overweight, odds of breast cancer is high. Listen to what I'm telling you here, okay? Vitamin D is helpful because sunlight exposure, or maybe take a supplement, is very important. It opposes cell growth, ability to multiply. So vitamin D, I don't even recommend taking a lot of supplements because in the foods I'm eating, and some side effects. But vitamin D, know your level, get a lab test, and take action if you need to. Speak to your doctor because you can take too much too. But sun exposure it is important, as well as if it's low to maybe take a supplement. And how common is breast cancer? And it's the most common cancer in females worldwide, okay? 1.5 to 2 million yearly. In the U.S., 200,000, I mentioned that, 40,000 deaths, and it's slowly going up. It is mostly in Western nations because we're eating processed food. We know very little about nutrition. We're not eating good fats. 50 years they told us that fat was bad. 50 years. It was done by industry, the government, pharmaceutical companies, all told us fat is bad. And they knew better. It's like the cigarettes. They kind of hit it for a long time, but it's coming out. And the death rate is slightly down, but because it's treated a little better now, but the number is going up. and age effect, remember I mentioned already 80% after age 50. So a lot of it has to do with weight gain because in the insulin, because the estrogen level itself goes down after age 50. Why breast cancer rates increase? Well, for one thing, it takes a long time to develop breast cancer. Remember we said that already, but that's the weight gain, insulin level is going up. So I personally think the insulin growth factor is what's doing it. So the magic 5 and increased breast cancer rate. Okay, lack of exercise is 1. Increased insulin. Remember, you can be thin or overweight. Get tested. Find out what it is. Diabetes. Increased alcohol. Smoking increases the rate also. Stress has an effect on it because stress, we've all had it. I got it. A little less since not doing surgery as much and playing more pickleball because we need something to feel good, and a serotonin and dopamine response quickly if we eat some sugar. Eat a donut, boom, I'm on a high. Maybe I'll have another, or eat some fast food because they take fast food. And if you think you're eating, and even as a piece of meat, piece of chicken, and it's, I went to a restaurant just the other day, and it was vegetables and shrimp, but everything was wrapped. Everything was wrapped. What do you think it was wrapped in? Some sugary product, and then they gave you a sauce, and I dipped it in the sauce. So what did I really have that night? What did I really have that night? I had a heck of a sugary diet is what I had. It sure tasted good. So the incidence too, even if there's a high genetic incidence in your family of breast cancer, they've a new science called epigenetics, is that you can prevent the genes and RNA from expressing themselves because you didn't eat the bad food. You exercised. You kept it at bay. And the telomeres, the end of the chromosomes, when a child is born, just listen to this. When a child is born, and it has DNA in every cell and RNA for expression, only 5%. When the first time I heard it, I couldn't believe it. Only 5% of our genetic code is written. It's on a script. That's as long as you can take it to the moon. It's written 5%. The rest is by what the mother did, what she ate, what she drank, whether she smoked, whether she consumed alcohol, and partially the genes that she got from her husband. You can, through proper nutrition, exercise, not smoking, alcohol, you're changing the genetic script of your child, and the rate of breast cancer goes down. But if you are eating high sugary foods, bad fats, not exercising, smoking, drinking, alcohol, your kid may probably get breast cancer. Mm-hmm. You're writing the genetic script of your child. Yes, yes. And so that's very important. There are people who is highly genetic, but again, it does not have to express itself. The Ashkenazi Jewish families have a very high rate of breast cancer, but if they follow good health habits themselves, don't have diabetes, watch what they're eating, the expression of that highly genetic in their community will reduce the expression rate. Mm-hmm. They found that. So genes account maybe 5% at most, and if you follow good health habits, maybe it's 2%. Yeah. So when we take all the money and send it for genetic research, I think we should apply some of it, maybe half of it, to prevention like I'm doing today, so the telomeres at the end that can be changed by our habits. It's a good thing that the genetic code is only written about 5% when you're born, and you, by age 4 or so, maybe 80-90% of it has been written. There are people that is in us are called a BRCA gene, BRCA, B1 and 2, but maybe only 2 or 3% of the people have it, and one have one gene, some have 2, but they do have a marked predisposition to get breast cancer. By about 80% have it by the time they're 80 years old. But through proper lifestyle, as already mentioned, you can reduce the expression tremendously. So oncogenes turn on cell division and cellular growth. Actually, these BRCA genes we spoke about actually are there to repair your cells, but they become abnormal because of our habits, okay? The mother or father have one gene of each. About 50% of the kids will get it, okay? And sometimes 40%, if you have the BRCA gene, two of them, 40% of the kids will inherit it. So lifestyle could prevent their expression. Most females don't know that. They're not told that. Some even have their breast amputated, removed. So before you have that done, check with many centers, and don't just like that. That's a very difficult decision. Some people have had this done, famous movie actresses. Did they know that maybe through proper lifestyle but who knows the final answer, but I want you get some information. Genetic testing to find out whether you have the gene or not. I wouldn't have it done. It's very expensive. I wouldn't have it done unless there's a lot of breast cancer in your family, and it's in every generation, okay? But if you all have diabetes or pre-diabetes, all eating the same food, odds are it's the food you're eating and not your genes that are doing it. The genes are being expressed by what you're eating. I remember sitting at a tabanaki table recently in an Asian restaurant, and there must have been 10 members of the same family, from little kids to grandpa, and they were all eating the same food, probably using the sweet stuff I ate the other day. Odds are they're just eating the same food. It's not their genes at work, okay? But that's complex. Can be complex. And but also these genes can affect increased rates of ovarian cancer, uterine cancer, incidentally, as 75% from obesity. Because of the hormones that are produced. I had a cancer doctor tell me that recently. So screening doesn't cure breast cancer, but it detects it. But you already got it then, okay. Do everything you can to get rid of it. Medication maybe, and diet maybe. Diet, but remember, a lot of it can be prevented, and if you have it, you can slow it down or maybe even stop it totally. Remember I told you about the keto? Once you learn about it, your doctor may not know anything about it. I know a lot of doctors don't know a darn thing about the keto diet. Evaluate it, read about it, read papers, get multiple opinions, okay? Prophylactic mastectomy, we talked about it. Mayo Clinic studied 214 patients, and only 3 in 14 years developed cancer. Go to an expert place like the Mayo Clinic, who have a lot of experience with it, but before you make your final decision. self-examine your breast. That's a big one. So the BRCA gene actually is a repair gene that mutates to cause cancer. And it mutates because you expose it to toxins, cigarettes, alcohol, food you were eating. And what you put on your fingers, your forks, and your feet writes the genetic script and the health in your body, okay? So the RNA is, down from the DNA, that's the messenger RNA. And like I said, that's written in a genetic code. If you unravel the whole thing, it would go to the moon, okay? And it's written in the numbers A, T, C, G, and there's permeation so that it's just getting too complex, okay? But it's very interesting. We can have mutated cells that don't grow by proper lifestyle, okay? And I already mentioned that autopsies revealed 39% have mutated cells at autopsies. So the Department of Defense is within us. So what we do is very important. Our Army, our Navy, our Air Force, and Marines are there to prevent it and attack it. If we eat properly, reduce stress, and type 2 diabetes, you can get rid of it in 6 weeks. I teach it. 6 weeks, 90% of the time, by eating properly. 50, 70% good fats, 20% protein, the rest fruits and vegetables. Susan Ryan's book describes it very well, or you can look at my YouTube shows, look at my breast cancer book. So many times breast cancer, like hereditary breast cancer, is polygenic, and it can take many genes. So hereditary breast cancer is polygenic. So when we take the Vera Bradley money, we send it all to Indianapolis, and they think they're going to discover one gene to cure breast cancer. Ain't going to happen. There's 50 genes that affect breast cancer. I'm so glad they're doing research. The University Building research with the names on it, but you could be preventing over 90% right here. Can be done. And I'd like you to spread this information so that we will do it. And many genes form breast cancer, and so it'd be very hard to change it. Very hard to change it. And the good news is about the epigenetics, which I talked about a bit. So telomeres are your future. Remember the thing sticking out the end of your chromosomes? Those are the telomeres. They're the end of the chromosomes. You can alter them by what you do. And the American Institute of Research has 10 recommendations, okay? Lean as possible without being underweight. I think you've heard enough of that. Physically active 30 minutes a day, okay? Avoid sugary drinks. Sugary drinks produce 50% of being overweight. 50% at least. It changes our brain, it changes our gut. Our friends down here, our gut change because of what we're drinking, okay? But they make us feel good. It releases dopamine and serotonin. I'm in heaven because I was drinking the sugary drink. Water, lemon, and lime, that's your drink, okay? The alcohol too, they used to think you could drink some wine, a glass a day, 2 or 3 glasses a week, but the latest research shows no alcohol. Any drink of alcohol can lead to cancers. That's the latest research, okay? Avoid supplements. Remember I said vitamin D, okay, maybe B12, but a lot of the supplements you take, they have to be detoxified by the liver, and that can produce more work on the liver. Eat your nutrients from the foods that I recommend. They're in there. The carotenoids are in foods of color. So eat foods of color, you get plenty of carotenoids. Nutrition is number one. It affects our Army, Navy, our Air Force, which will protect you against the cancer. It's the genetic code of the food that does it. And the reason that works, because these plants you're eating, their genetic code was written by the things they were fighting, and they survived. They were fighting viruses, bacteria, and funguses, and they won the war. They grew, they lived, and you're eating them. They'll do the same thing to your body. Isn't that interesting? They survived the war down there, and now you're eating them, and they're going to fight for you. Isn't that interesting? And I have a bird feeder where I read my books every morning, and I've watched every animal and bird coming by, and you know they all get along. They hug each other, they respect their young, and they eat my food every day. I haven't seen a dead one yet, but I'm sure some of them die and I don't see them. But they look healthy. And the woodchuck living under my house for 15 years, he looks healthy. I saw him today, him and his wife, who would do such a thing. But I did it. I like animals, okay? So cruciferous vegetables, I already wrote you a list. They are among the best because of the nutrients and chemicals and minerals that they have in them. I would highly suggest you get a Vitamix machine like I have and put in some vegetables and some nuts, and some good proteins, and have one every morning, because you'll be fulfilling your nutrient need that day. And I throw in some good fats too, some guacamole, for example, which I'll have in the mornings with some good protein like eggs. Very healthy. That's an anti-cancer environment. Remember I mentioned mushrooms, so some mushrooms in there, some onions in there, and they lead to a very healthy life. Inflammatories, inflammation in cancer. I've already mentioned this, and I think maybe mention this once more. The Western diet is inflammatory. Refined sugar is, white flour is, red industrial farm meats, oils rich in omega-6s, that's the bad fats. Cigarettes, alcohol, those are the ones cancer's a sugar feeder. So get the sugar in your life and eat the keto way, and your odds of getting breast cancer is way down. And I really appreciate you listening to me, and because this can have a great effect on your life. Not just women get breast cancer, men get about 5% of it too. So they need to pay attention. But if you eat the way I described to you, you won't just avoid breast cancer, you'll avoid many other cancers, prostate cancer, colon cancer, blood cancers, I can go on and on. So it is very important that your habits of low sugar, good fats, don't smoke, avoid the alcohol, and keep stress at a reasonable level, because it'll cause you to eat sugar to feel good, to get the serotonin and dopamine out, and then you become addicted to it. And but anyway, hope you watch some of my other shows. And if you have a chance, maybe read my breast cancer book, which you can even get at the library. It leads to other books too. It's just a summary to get you stimulated. I'm about information. My bullets are information. And I do this because I love you. I care about you. See you next time. Thanks for watching the show. Bye-bye.